The internet is cracked, the show that asks the question, can we coexist with our creation?
Hello, I'm Seth Camillo.
And I am Caroline Risberg, and we are The Internet is Cracked by Addicts for Addicts.
And today we are so lucky to have Dr. Kasra Ghaharian, the Director of Research at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas's International Gaming Institute, where he studies how gambling systems, regulation, and emerging technologies like AI shape behavior, markets, and the world far beyond the casino floor. He is also the co-founder of AirHub, a think tank that studies AI's impact on the gaming industry. Dr. Ghaharian, thank you for joining us. We're so lucky to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so we want to ask you, can you explain how AI and gambling goes together?
I guess, the relationship between gambling and technology more broadly has always been there. I guess it wasn't too long ago in terms of, the history of gambling that we were using coins to put into a slot machine and then pulling a physical lever, and then, physical reels would spin on these things we now call slot machines or electronic gambling machines. Um, and we don't call them slot machines anymore in the industry. At least we call them electronic gaming machines because they've moved
Oh,
beyond these kind of physical aspects, and they definitely look more like a video game now. The reels are no longer physical. They're like they're actually like little screens. They're the virtual images. There's no handle anymore. You're pushing a button. And of course, the internet obviously changed the way people interact with gambling. Online gambling became huge. I'd say kind of first in Europe. It's quite a mature market now in a lot of European jurisdictions. It's only actually just got relatively bigger in the United States after some legislation was changed back in 2018. So the online industry is actually quite relatively immature as compared to the European market. But the internet definitely changed things. It made gambling way more accessible. You no longer had to get in your car, drive to a casino. You could sit on your couch with your laptop and play your favorite casino game in the comfort of your own home. So bringing this, I guess, to AI now, I think we're just only scratching the surface in terms of how we're going to see it change the ways people interact with gambling. The internet obviously made it more accessible. It made it faster. It made data collection more easy. Operators can collect all the behavioral tracking data on users. They can use that to identify high worth players, make the experience more engaging. They can also use the data for good, though. They can use it to identify who might be at risk so that they can intervene with them early. And I think AI is going to, help all of these things. It's going to help companies be more efficient. It's going to help them with safer gambling and responsible gambling messaging and interventions. So I guess whatever you're seeing other companies do with AI, like, financial services, banks, healthcare, you can imagine those same things going on in gambling, to make them more efficient, to do all of those things. But I'd say, yeah, to help with marketing, operational efficiency, protecting consumers, developing new games. You could see a world where maybe you sit at a slot machine in Vegas and you don't like the theme of the game and you want it to be, I don't know, maybe it's a Sopranos themed game, but you don't like Sopranos. You'd rather have, what's your favorite TV show? Friends. You'd rather have a Friends game. So it instantly changes the theme based on your preferences. You could envision a world where generative AI is maybe doing that.
But you also insert like at a slot machine or people insert a card, correct? Sometimes that identifies themselves. So AI could adjust to your preferences, and not only your preferences, but also maybe behavioral tendencies that you have that you don't even know you have. Is that a correct statement?
I'll try and dissect it a little bit. So You're correct. In a lot of jurisdictions now, if we're talking about land-based casinos, because obviously online everything's pretty
Yeah.
much tracked, unless you're playing in a crypto casino or something. Um, but if we're talking about a land-based casino, a lot of jurisdictions now actually do mandate what we call carded play. So you have to have a player's card and you have to insert that card into the machine. But not all jurisdictions are like that. For example, here in Las Vegas, it's a heavily kind of transient market. It's not a lot of locals on the strip, so they don't actually mandate carded play. You can rock up to a slot machine, at the Venetian, at the MGM Grand, and you can play without putting a card in. So that's what we would call anonymous play.
Okay.
But certainly you're correct in like locals markets. Most people are going to have a player's card. They're going to be inserting that card, and the casino is going to know, exactly when they play, how often they play, what games they like. So they're using this data now to craft, tailored offers, bonus plans for these players to keep them at their casino. To your point in terms of changing the game and the mechanics, to a certain extent, yes, that might be feasible, but there are a lot of laws and regulations in place
Okay.
that would prevent kind of real-time dynamic changing of, say, game mechanics. You wouldn't be able to say change the RTP. This is an industry term. It's called return to player, which is basically the probability of winning on the machine.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to change that in real time. That would be illegal.
Is there any way of, because we said that earlier too, like now you can see it on the comfort of your home. I have seen it, everywhere. I see people are playing sports, betting, especially, I think, or anything. Is there any way of regulate that? Some kind of way where you're not spending all your money or anything like that? Because
Yeah.
I have seen that. I personally have also known people that, they could
Yeah.
not stop playing.
It was acknowledged, that gambling is a potentially addictive product, right? It's actually quite unique in the sense that it's the only behavioral addiction that is in the diagnostic statistical manual of addictions. You obviously have substance abuse, right, and alcohol in there.
Mhm.
Gambling is the only one where you're not actually like ingesting something. Which is
Right.
quite interesting because that suggests that, there's something about participating in the act of gambling that is very similar to like taking cocaine or drinking alcohol. This is acknowledged. There's lots of clinical research, lots of other research around, the dangers of gambling and how you can become addicted to it. And this is acknowledged by the industry at large. And there's various steps that are taken to ensure that, the product is delivered in a safe and responsible manner. Um, the term that was kind of used to describe this movement um, was originally called responsible gambling or responsible gaming. This term kind of arrived, I'd say, in the 90s, early 2000s. There was a famous meeting amongst researchers and other stakeholders, and they devised what was called the Reno model because they met in Reno, Nevada, actually. So they called it
Okay.
All
the
right.
Reno model. So the Reno model kind of set forth what responsible gambling is, and who are the stakeholders, who are those responsible for it, and it identified various different stakeholders: the operators, the casinos,
Mhm.
regulators, treatment providers, the players themselves. So there's all these stakeholders who play a part in contributing to this thing called responsible gambling, and there's various different ways all these stakeholders can play a part. For example, regulators can enact different regulations and policy to help enforce consumer protection. We've started to see this more and more, especially in Europe. For example, in England, in the United Kingdom, rather, they've actually mandated that operators need to do affordability checks. So if a player loses a certain amount of money, that operator has to do an affordability check on that customer to make sure that they have income that can, sustain that kind of level of play. Operators themselves is another stakeholder, and they can do their part in responsible gambling. And you'll go to any online gambling site or you'll go to any casino and they'll have what's called a responsible gambling program. as a little side note, I'm using the term responsible gambling. There's actually been a shift away from this term to safer gambling or sustainable gambling. The thought being that the term responsible put too much of an onus of responsibility on the individual,
Ah,
and that was seen as
Oh,
bad. So
you know,
people
I
have
I
started to,
I agree
yeah.
with that. I like that. Yeah, yeah, I can see
Well,
that.
so in Europe, you're starting to see people use the term safer gambling, and they're more kind of they're trying to make it more of a public health approach rather than make it individual responsible. But anyway, that's a whole other
okay.
debate. But so operators can do their part for responsible gambling or safer gambling. Like online, you'll see they'll provide deposit limits or the ability to self-exclude, and you can say, I don't want to gamble anymore. Please don't let me come onto the site anymore. You can set limits like, okay, I don't want to gamble more than 2 hours a month. I don't want to spend more than $25 per session, whatever it might be. Um, and then, of course, the individual, the gambler themselves is a stakeholder. They, however you want to, this could be contested, but the person themselves are responsible as well. They can do things themselves to be a more responsible or safer gambler. There's even going to AI, that there's companies out there whose whole business is creating machine learning models that detect risky play online, and that's their
Uh,
whole business.
Now that's
Um,
fascinating. That is
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
fascinating. So how would that work in practice?
Essentially, what you do, and this is very popular, or it's easy to implement online. It's easier to implement online versus in a land-based casino. It's
Mm,
becoming it's becoming easier to do in a land-based casino because in slot machines you can easily track people's bets because they're digital technological machines. Table games, though, historically it's been not been possible to track every individual bet because your chips, it's a physical game.
mm.
You've got a pit boss who's in charge of like 20 tables. They're like, oh yeah, that guy's spent about $20 an hour. They don't have a clue, but they do have now what they call RFID enabled tables. And also, they use computer vision as well through cameras. So we are getting to a stage where the tracking on table games is as good as what you would see in an online casino. Yeah.
How do they track on the table?
So there's two main ways. One is one is a company called Walker Digital Table Systems. They use RFID technology, so it's a radio frequency identification device.
Huh.
Um, they're little chips. So the chips actually they're embedded in the table, and they're also in each individual chip. The chips communicate with the tables, and you have some very sophisticated, large software and technology that tracks all of that information. The other
Wow.
way to do it is via computer vision. So you can have cameras angled at the tables in various different ways. The computer vision is trained to identify stacks of chips and identify it to a player. Um, Anecdotally, I'd say the computer vision method is a bit more messy because maybe you've trained your computer vision algorithm in a very well lit laboratory, and then you put it in a casino that doesn't have very good lighting, or maybe there's a window and the sun starts to shine in the camera, and
Mm.
the computer vision can't do its job.
I can't
Uh,
believe they can do that. That's amazing.
No, me
yeah,
neither.
and then and then going back to your original question, I guess, in terms of like using machine learning to detect risk. So once you have any of this, behavioral data, as we call it, which is basically the wagering activity of each player, you can train models to identify certain patterns of play, or what we would call in the industry maybe markers of harm. So what are these kind of fluctuations or patterns of wagering behavior that are associated to or correlated with or indicative of future gambling harms?
Yeah.
Um, the crux of the issue, though, right, is with any machine learning or AI system, what you really need is a labeled data set. So, the reason why computer vision is so good is because we have a ton of images and we know what's in the image. So if we want to train a computer vision to detect cats, we have lots of images of cats, and we can tell the
Mhm.
computer what a cat looks like. Unfortunately, we can't tell a computer what a problem gambler looks like in terms of wagering data. So that's a bit of a crux,
Mm.
but there are ways to get around it. For example, you could you could give you could give 1,000 players a questionnaire that diagnoses them as a gambling addict. There's your label data set. You can, match that to your behavioral data, and then you can start to train models to identify the behaviors and the variables that are indicative of high scores on that questionnaire.
Do you think that people are the gamblers are embracing this? Is this something that you feel they want to be surveilled because maybe it gives them a feeling of safety?
That's a great question.
Mm.
And I think going back to jurisdiction, it definitely depends on the cultural kind of
Yeah.
the culture of these different jurisdictions. In places in Europe, they're much more kind of used to these kind of public health, governments kind of having these mandates about health and, sugar content in foods and all of this stuff. Whereas in a place like the US, I've lived in England. I lived in England for the first 20 years of my life. Now I've been here for about 20 years as well. So, I could say I feel like generally speaking in the US, I feel like they're less inclined to kind
Well,
of
I gotta say,
follow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know, Caroline, how you feel, but I don't really, when I go to Vegas, I don't really gamble because I know I'm gonna lose, and I also don't want to start to like it. And I probably would be more likely to gamble if I felt there was some sort of surveillance of my behavior to to modify it before I, have a problem. I would feel safer about it, I guess. I don't know, what do you
That's an awesome insight from what I've seen in the data. So going back to these tools like limit setting, for example,
Mhm.
these tools are great in theory, right? Oh yeah, I can set a limit. I can, spend no more than $100 a month. But what we've seen, I think the data says that less than 2% of people actually use these tools,
Uh-huh.
which is a bit
Yeah.
of an issue. Um, so maybe you're the minority. I don't know.
Yeah,
What
Maybe,
maybe you
yeah.
what do
are.
you
Because
think,
actually
Caroline?
made me think of no, I was gonna tell you, it made me think of just because it's that limit. I remember this is years ago. I went to Vegas and I was like, I'm only gonna spend this amount of money. This is what I'm gonna spend. And I thought I kept it and I was playing, I don't know how to play on the what do you call it? The
Table
tables.
games.
But so I had a little strategy. So I was like, okay, as long as I win, I'm going to stay on the table. As soon as I lose, I'm going to go to the next table. I mean, so I went for one table, lost next to next table. I kept going. And I won maybe $100 total. It was like nothing. I'm far from a big gambler. And suddenly I had two big guys knocking on my shoulders. You are not allowed to do this in here. And I was like, what? And I was like, so they let me go because you're supposed to stay on the table, I guess. But
On the
what my
It-
thought was with all of this, it was hard to stop, even though I had a little limit, and now I've been winning $100, and I was like, oh my god, should I play? I want to play again. Now I want to win another $100. So I see what you're saying. Like when you put the little limit on yourself, but then you get, oh my God, I want $10. I want $20. Oh, I can maybe
yeah.
win $50. And that's
Well,
when I think they get you,
yeah,
you know?
that's the dopamine. And,
Yeah.
you speak to a lot of, lived experience population, people who've actually lived this and are, have become addicted to the product. Um, a lot of these stories will involve, a big win. A
Yeah.
lot of these cases, have experienced the reason why they developed a disorder was because they experienced a big win at the start, and they got hit with that big win, dopamine chill, and they're
Yeah.
trying to chase that again.
Well, that's what I'm
T-
asking about from from the product creator side. Um,
Mm.
does AI give them information about how to create a better experience, aka an experience in which there's more dopamine hits?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the game designer's objective to create games that are engaging. Are they going to use AI to enhance that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is going to be done in various ways, right? Because it's not just about the number of hits you have when you're sitting down on the slot machine. That's going to maybe have an effect, but maybe not, because a lot of the times you'll hit and it's not actually a win. It looks like a win. They make it look like a win. It's called like a near miss.
Yes.
A sound will go off and it's like, oh, I won. Actually, no, you actually lost 20 cents on your dollar.
Oh,
But
wow.
but that's a way, that's tricked you. So I think it's called losses disguised as wins. So there's started to be some regulation around that, and how you shouldn't be able to do that. Bonus features is another way you can kind of like link people in or get people to continue playing because they want to get the bonus feature. I mean, taking it to sports betting, right? It used to be that sports betting, maybe it wasn't even seen as gambling per se. I remember, in England, every year, I'd work with my mum on the Grand National. The Grand National is the big horse racing event of the year in the UK, and I'd maybe pick a horse when I was like 10 years old. It was a harmful activity, right? And with soccer, you used to bet on the outcome of the game, and that was it. But now you can like sit and watch the game
Yeah.
and bet if someone is gonna like kick it off, or are they gonna miss the next goal, or how
Well,
fast are they gonna run
that's
from
called a
point A to
parlay.
point B?
That's called a parlay bet, right? Is that
Parlay Well, parlay bets is you can do parlay bets on like an outcome of a game. So let's use NFL as an example, right? There's going to be like 10. I don't follow football, so there's going to be like 10 games this weekend. A parlay would be like, okay, I'm going to pick the winner for each of those 10 bets. That's a parlay. You can do parlays on what's called in-play betting, which is what I'm describing. So you can watch a football game
Okay.
and be like, say if there's a what's it called when they have to kick it?
Field goal.
Field
Field
goal.
goal.
Say if there's a field goal about to happen, you could literally bet in real time. Oh, are they going to make this field goal or not?
Really
there's gonna
that
be
quick?
It's
That
called
quick?
in-play betting. Yeah, it's like playing a video game, but it's like real life.
Wow.
That's amazing. I didn't know it was that quick.
I mean,
Me neither.
there's companies that there's companies, their whole business is collecting data from sports, and then that data, you could use that data, right, for like sports performance and intelligence and all that, but you can also use it to create betting markets.
Do they use AI to assess? Because they have to win, right? I mean, the guys who are putting this product forward, they need to make they need to make money, so they need to understand better than you the outcome of the game. So
Yeah.
they use AI to assess outcomes as well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's lots of sophisticated statisticians and mathematics and AI, I'm assuming now, that goes into making sure they're balancing their books right. The sports bit doesn't really care about that outcome. They just care about how much action they're getting on either side of the bet to make sure that they can get an appropriate cut.
Wait, explain that to me. I'm confused a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, so okay, so say if I don't know say if England are playing France in the World Cup final, and France is the favorite to win by the bookies decide that, okay, they're going to win. We reckon they're going to win by at least 2 goals.
Yeah.
So they'll put the line at 2. Okay, so you can bet that France are going to win, but they have to win by at least 2 goals.
Okay.
The bookmaker doesn't care if France win or England win. What they care about is how much action is being put on either side. Because if a load of action is going on France to win, then they're accountable for everything if they lose. So they need to have a similar amount of action on each side. That's why the lines are so important to make accurately, because you want to do it in such a way where you're getting because the bookmakers just taking a cut. They're just getting a cut. They're not winning if either side win. They're winning all the time.
Oh,
They
okay,
win all the
okay.
time.
So
Yeah.
AI really could be beneficial if it can understand the behavior of a human
Tuning
at
the
a
line.
deeper level, then it can adjust the line appropriately to make them more money, correct?
All about tuning the odds to that point where you're gonna get optimal action on each side. I mean, this is very simplified, but yeah.
Okay.
Wow. I
It's like a slot. It's like a slot machine, right? Like they win on every you know in the long term.
Yes, yeah.
They win. You know, blackjack. Yeah, maybe they'll lose a little bit, but in the long run, they're always going to win.
And my dad's a mathematician, and that's why I've never enjoyed gambling, because he's like, you're always over the, and I took a bunch of statistics courses in college. I have a BS in economics, and you will eventually, with enough data set points, you will
Yep.
lose.
Exactly.
Eventually.
The law of large numbers, right? You're always going to get to that. Like the probability of winning on roulette, right, is like I think the hold is like 4% or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, in an evening, the casino could do horribly. Like, oh shit, we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But over the course of 10 years, it's going to be very close to that 4% or whatever it is.
Right. I always used to say, like, when you drive into Vegas and you see, I mean, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more casino every time. This is not because people are winning all those millions of dollars, everyone that's there. You know, we're
Yeah.
losing all our money.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's financed by that. And so,
yeah.
how would this AI, I know you did you've done statistical analysis of gambling, right, yourself, and you worked in the industry. What capacity did you work in the industry, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no way. So let me go back. So I actually in England, I did my undergraduate at the University of Surrey. I studied business management, and I ran the University Poker Society because I was really into poker. Um, and I got into online poker around that time as well. So I came out to Vegas to study. Actually, well, I came out here to play poker, and then I wanted to work in the nice grand casinos. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I should come out. I should come out to UNLV, study hospitality management, and then I can work in the casinos. So actually, during my time at grad school at UNLV, I studied slot floor optimization. So I looked at how to allocate slot machines, but in a mathematical way, because traditionally it had been done by intuition.
Yeah.
There'd be a floor manager be like, oh, I don't like these machines, I'm just going to change them for these ones. So I tried to do like a kind of mathematical approach to that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, after graduating, I worked at Las Vegas Sands, which they owned the Venetian and the Palazzo at the
Ooh.
time. And I didn't do much in the casino side of things. Actually, I worked in strategic marketing, and I did a lot on e-commerce and digital strategy. I did work on the online poker strategy for a while, but then the US government said online gambling was a big no-no, so that kind of went out the window.
Mhm.
So my main function was actually around e-commerce, like managing the websites and that kind of thing. Um, and then, yeah, I don't know, I kind of did some things and decided to come back to UNLV for a PhD because I really liked doing research, and I liked working in the corporate environment, but I didn't feel it was conducive for kind of my rigorous kind of research academic mindset. So yeah.
Well, I'll never play
Mm.
poker against you, basically, is
Yeah, me
There you
neither.
go.
And I can't play poker.
Yeah, you'd be fine. I'm terrible. I was just playing at Resorts World last week actually, and I lost like $100. I was like,
even you are gambling. What the heck is happening here?
yeah.
So how can this be applied to the, I mean, so basically they're using AI. It's all about behavioral adaptation and understanding behavior. How can this be used, like, I mean, I could imagine in like how would you transfer this technology to stuff like the stock market or the or just shopping in general? Or I mean, how, is it transferable, this technology?
For the like how it's being used in the gambling sector to other kind of
Yeah, yeah,
digital
yeah.
economies. Yeah, interesting question. I certainly think I mean, I was at Neurips in December. Do you guys know the Neurips conference?
No.
It's a big AI
No.
conference. It's a big
Oh.
AI conference called it stands for Neural Information Processing Systems.
Okay.
It's a huge computer science and AI research conference. But they do have a kind of exhibitor hall with, like, you know, Amazon, Google, Meta, all these companies are there. But I was walking around that exhibit floor, and there was like 3 or 4 trading companies, stock market traders.
Yeah.
And they're there because they want to recruit the brilliant new PhDs and
Yeah.
CS and AI people, because
Mm.
they basically they do AI trading. Like, you know, they're trying to create models that beat the market. So they're doing that similarly to how, like we were saying, you know, the sports betting data companies are obviously doing it to create the best odds and the best lines. We're also seeing it actually used for integrity. So, you know, making sure that, like, we're not seeing anti-money laundering activity or like collusion or maybe even match fixing, right? Because maybe we can use betting volumes to identify if someone's throwing a match or something.
Mm.
So I think those kind of like things are being done in the trading world. In terms of it was interesting. This came up at Neurips as well. I was in a session, and they were talking about how generative AI, image generation, video generation, and how that's going to intersect with social media and YouTube and, you know, Instagram, how that's going to create highly engaging content. And, you know, the whole session was calling for things to be done to protect consumers from that. And it was a very familiar conversation to me because, as you just heard me talk about with the
Mhm.
responsible gambling, over the last 20 years, we've been trying to come up with ways and tools that can help people, you know, not get really too engaged or addicted to gambling. And they were making all of these suggestions about how to prevent people from getting addicted to this highly engaging or addictive generative AI content. And it's funny, I put my hand up and I said, well, yeah, these are all great ideas, but these are ideas we've had in the gambling world for the past 20 years, and less
Mm.
than 2% of people use them. So
Yeah.
yeah, you need to do better than kind of. So I think actually gambling and what we've done around safer gambling can really be a good kind of learning for these other digital products.
Well,
So
isn't
yeah.
social media
Mm.
very much like a slot machine, right? I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in some respects, I mean, the only, I guess the only, so the definition of gambling, right, is wagering something of value on an uncertain outcome. Um, how much can you apply that definition to the ingestion of social
Well,
media?
if your time for dopamine hits, I mean, time is worth something. That's some
Yeah,
value right
I guess
there.
Mm.
the only thing is it's probably not. There's no uncertainty. So yeah, I agree with you about the time, but where's the uncertainty? Because obviously, you know, if you're gonna put,
Because they don't give you the dopamine hit is the, like, Caroline and I Love Dogs.
yeah.
It's the ultimate dog video. So you're
Mm.
looking for that payout.
But you almost are you so when I put a bet on red on roulette, right?
Yeah.
It's uncertain whether it's going to be red or black.
Or
Mhm.
When you log on to Instagram Reels looking for dog videos, it's a certainty that you're going to get dog videos, right?
But you
Yes.
may not get the good dog video, the one that you need. The one, like, that I love is the dog jumping into the leaves. I don't
Okay, so
so
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I haven't had this conversation before, so it's interesting to me. So yeah, I guess there is some uncertainty. Maybe there is a bit of
yeah,
gambling mechanics in there. Yeah, maybe. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they purposely give you not what you want, so you stay
That's
on
what
there
I'm
searching for what
saying.
you want.
That's
Okay.
what
See?
I'm
That's what
saying.
it
That's
is.
yeah. I feel like that they they understand partial differential reinforcement, right? You get, you're more attuned to things if you always get a cookie, it okay, research that I've heard about. If you always get a cookie, you have less of addiction than when you randomly get a cookie.
Right. That makes sense. Yep, 100%. So yeah, I
Yeah.
guess maybe they're giving you those dogs that you don't like. I don't know, York- Yorkshire Terriers and yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I said, yeah. Yeah. I was just now I'm sitting and listening. I was just thinking about like say with advertisement, you get all this bombarded, like go and play, go and do this, go and that. It's like basically you're telling the person who may be sitting at home addicted to gambling, I can't go on my phone because, and then you have the advertisement is like, come and play, and here's free games. You start it, it won't cost you anything.
Gambling advertising is a very hotly debated topic, and it's something actually that's latched onto a lot of the time in regulated markets and somewhat newly regulated markets as well. Um, you know, I think it was in Canada, in one of the provinces, they've proposed a bill to ban all gambling advertising. And I think this has
Mm,
happened in other jurisdictions as well. It's been a moment since I looked at the literature and the news on this, but I know there's activity around banning gambling advertising. Reason
mm,
being that, I mean, look at the English Premiership. I think not too long ago, I think it was like well over half, maybe even almost 100% of teams were sponsored by a gambling company.
Wow.
Who's watching soccer? Kids are watching soccer. Why is
yeah.
like Bet365 or whatever? And kids are buying the shirts and they're going around with a gambling company on their shirt and stuff. So
Oh, wow.
so there's this big movement towards, this is bad. Kids are getting exposed to gambling advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, it's getting people to bet maybe money they can't afford. I will say though, the evidence around gambling advertising and its actual direct effect on problem gambling rates is like very limited, and
Mm,
the evidence is not good. We need more research in this area to actually understand the impacts of gambling advertising. I think there's a lot of assumptions going on right now, but
mm-hmm.
I think it's not hard to argue with what I just said, right? Oh, kids are watching soccer, you've got a gambling thing on your shirt. No one's gonna. It's hard to argue with that, but playing devil's advocate, the evidence for me really isn't there in terms of a direct connect between gambling advertising and higher problem gambling rates. So I do think we need more research in that area. In terms of AI exacerbating all this, yeah, 100%. Like it's going to definitely exacerbate, you know, advertising, make it more engaging.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to have so many different effects, and I think I guess as a self plug, this is why we set up the AI Research Hub at the International Gaming Institute. We felt we could kind of provide this thought leadership in terms of AI for gambling. And we're doing this very broadly. We understand AI has a huge opportunity for what is essentially an entertainment product. Let's not forget
Mm-hmm.
that gambling is a big entertainment business. The large majority of people enjoy gambling recreationally as a leisure activity. Yes, it is a potentially addictive product, and a small proportion of the population do get addicted, and we have to acknowledge that. But
Yeah.
I'd like to say that it is an entertainment product. So we understand the benefits of AI for gambling as a business. At the same time, we want the industry to adopt the technology responsibly, meaning that we need to understand how it should be used for responsible gambling. What do operators or regulators need to know about AI? Which areas do they need to govern it? Should we be having chatbots, as customer service agents for gambling? Like all of these different things. So we want to understand what the opportunities are, what the challenges are, but also what the risks are as well. And I think that's what we're trying to provide for the industry with the AI Research Hub.
Yeah,
Mm,
tell us more about that because this is a big part of what you're doing now, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Who is involved? What was the impetus? Why did you feel you needed to go from an individual researcher to creating this group?
Yeah.
What made you do that?
Good one.
Yeah. So lots of various different things, but at its heart, I think the International Gaming Institute has been around much longer than I've been here. I think it's been around for 30 years.
Mm,
And it's got a stellar reputation in the gambling field. Like, I mean, if you ask anyone in gambling, UNLV, International Gaming Institute, they know what we've done over the past 30 or so years. So, the institute's always had a reputation for kind of providing thought leadership, evidence-based research, to inform all stakeholders across the industry, whether that's operators, technology providers, regulators. And I was doing my PhD from 2019 to 2022, and I was using machine learning on a gambling data set that I had. And I asked myself, I was like, okay, I know companies are using machine learning and AI to do some of these things. Are they doing it responsibly?
Mm.
So then I was like, got into AI ethics and all of this stuff. And this was about 2021, 2022. So a little bit before ChatGPT got released.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was doing some research, got some stuff published just as like ChatGPT came out. And, I was one of few people doing kind of AI research in gambling. So I, got presented at some conferences and things like that. And I was speaking with a friend of mine, Simo Dragizadeh, who'd built one of these risk detection machine learning products. And yeah,
Mm.
we were chatting and we said, like, there's not really any guiding light. There's no one really providing vision or like where the industry's at in terms of AI or what should be studied, what should operators be doing. So we
Mm.
thought that, a university research institute could provide this kind of broad evidence-based information, thought leadership around AI. So that's exactly what we're doing. I think the best example of this is going to be our State of AI in Gaming report. So this
Mhm.
is going to be this year is going to be the inaugural annual report. We're doing it in collaboration with KPMG. Um, but we're going to survey like everything about AI. So we've got companies doing a survey where we're going to see how are they using AI, where are they
Mm.
getting ROI, what are their challenges. We're asking regulators what they think. Does AI need to be regulated for gambling, or does it, do we need like federal legislation or whatever it might be? What's the academic research on AI and gambling? Who are filing patents? Um,
Mm.
what what startups are out there in terms of AI and gambling? So, very broadly looking at what's going on in AI and gambling. That's basically what we're trying to do.
Mm.
You hit the mark precisely with your timing.
It was lucky.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
It was
Yeah.
lucky. But a unique thing about the Air Hub, AI Research Hub, we call it the Air Hub, is we we, we kind of stand a bit different as an academic research institute in gambling because we wanted to have a direct dialogue with industry. Actually, so the hub is actually founded by 10 different industry stakeholders. So we kind of pitched them. We were like, "This is what we want to do. We want to provide thought leadership for AI in gambling. Are you guys interested in funding this research?"
Mhm.
So they've actually funded the research, and they're part of an industry advisory panel that we have a direct dialogue with. So we can like, which is really good from my standpoint because I can understand whether the research I'm doing is important to these stakeholders in the industry. Um, there's actually a movement away, like especially in Europe and other places where they don't want to have anything to do with industry in terms of research. They think that any industry funded research or any industry involved research is purely biased. But I really don't agree with that. I don't really see how we can move forward on things like responsible gambling without collaborating with the industry. They have this kind of data and stuff. So.
What you were saying about it being
Mm.
an entertainment product, I mean, it's the same thing with alcohol. I drink alcohol, but that doesn't mean I have an alcohol problem. So if you approach it from that perspective that it's an entertainment product and you don't not necessarily demonized at every moment.
Going to something like AI for risk detection, these models that do player risk detection, a lot of the research has been published by companies, actually. So
Mm.
Playtech, for example, who's a founding member of AirHub, they have a algorithmic detection system, and they publish work on their system. So they contributed to the knowledge base in that respect. Mindway AI is another company that was born out of a university research project. So I think it's important to know that this collaboration with industry can be quite beneficial.
And even selfishly from their, I'll just say this last thing and then we can get back to AI, but selfishly, they want gamblers who are consistently in a healthy place so they can have consistent customers rather than somebody who blows out their bank account and that's it.
That's the theory. Yeah, I'm still yet to see hard data on whether what you're saying, like, is
Maybe
it?
it's not true.
Yeah, maybe it's not. I do know that the large majority of revenue for gambling comes from a very small number of people. It's called Pareto's rule, right? The 80-20 rule, like 80% of your revenue come from 20% of your customers.
Yeah.
In gambling, it's more like 95% of revenue comes from 5% of your customers. At least from some of the data that I've seen. Yeah.
Hmm. But I
But
have a
yeah,
question. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, like we have we talk to a lot of different people in with AI and all the things, and a lot of things we hear is, for example, let's say social media, how companies want you to stay on the platforms, and I can then thinking obviously we're gambling and AI is in and the chat boots and whatever. So I guess my question is for you who try to figure out like to fix things and how you can read out of it, and then you maybe have those groups who are trying to get me addicted.
mm.
Are you if this makes sense? Like, I mean, I almost feel like there's two poles in this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I guess the where my mind goes when you bring this point up is that yes, these large operators and companies have individuals that are dedicated to responsible gambling. Some companies will have a chief responsible gambling officer.
Hmm.
Um, some companies even have a department, like the whole department that's dedicated to responsible gambling. Um, I do wonder. I don't know. I don't work in one of these companies that, we're starting to have dialogues and things, so maybe I'll understand later. But how much of a conversation is there between like, the RG personnel and the marketing personnel? Is it that
Hmm.
the marketing has this idea for this new product or this new game? Do they have to go to the RG personnel and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Is there anything we should be thinking about in terms of rolling this out? What safety features could we put in? I don't know if those kind of conversations happen. Um, I mean, I'd love it to happen with AI, and I think some of the frameworks we're coming out with in terms of responsible AI is going to start touching on this stuff. I think there does need to be more kind of internal collaboration um, to think about these things. It's kind of like I'm at a university, right? So when I come up with a research idea, if I want to go ahead with that idea, I need to go to my ethics review board to get my research protocol reviewed before I execute the
Hmm.
study. So I believe the same thing should happen with a lot of AI technologies inside companies, right? You
Right.
come up with this idea about a new AI marketing platform or new AI marketing campaign or a new whatever it is. Is there like an internal committee that you can go to just to have outside perspective and give it the okay before it goes ahead? So I think having these kind of responsible AI programs is going to be really important.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, especially with AI, it's so new for well, for most of us. In one way, it's so new and it's exploding, and we don't really have regulations. I think it's like, bam, here it is. What are we going to do with it? And now we have people like you, who's like, okay, how are we
It's
going
moving.
to?
It's moving extremely quickly, and like I'm looking at it from in a very niche sector, and it already seems really big to handle. So I can't even
Mm,
imagine, and I think this is why you know there's struggles right now. Taking the US as an example, right? Because that's if we think about it, this is where all the main kind of frontier labs are. China's
yes.
catching up, but Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, US based companies. I think we had this bit of a hype stage, and now we're kind of plateauing a little bit over the next couple of years. I do think it's still going to have huge impacts, and I think the pace of development is still crazy. But
Mm,
I think it's just growing pains.
This show, I mean, in our show that we're making, a big part of it is, that try to sort of prediction of the future. And I've never been so even though we've done a lot of episodes, I've never been so unsure of what something is gonna be, you know? It's, you know,
What is your view on super intelligence?
scary. One word.
Yeah.
Do you think it's gonna? I guess when do you think it's gonna arrive?
I'm not
I don't
a
know. I
yeah,
don't know.
I don't
Soon? No.
or is it here is also the
Or is
question
it
I
here?
always ask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I wonder because a lot of the time or just right around the corner because I feel
Mm.
I keep hearing people say AI bubble, and I'm like, "That's ridiculous. This stuff is insane." Like, I don't think there's anywhere we're nowhere close to an AI bubble. This stuff is amazing, and I think it's gonna be, so, maybe I'll be proven wrong, the stock market's gonna drop by half tomorrow, but to me, it seems like there is so much that this stuff can do that it's
Yeah.
like talking to you. You spend your life thinking about AI and gambling, and you're still
yeah.
thinking this, that, the other
Yeah.
thing.
Even if we don't get super intelligence, right? Yeah, I think you're right, Seth. Like, it's so capable and amazing now. It's probably even if we don't get super intelligence, the impact it's going to have in terms of like when we figure out agentic AI and it can do certain tasks that workers can do and stuff. It's going to have massive impacts even if we don't get to a super intelligence. I think
Yeah, I
so.
think the onus is on
Yeah.
us. I think we
Mhm.
have this amazing thing, and it's how do you use it. I think that's what the bubble is maybe just people not being creative about using it because I am constantly amazed by what
Yeah,
you can do.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I think I follow a lot of AI commentary, and I think everyone started to do their 2025 year in review. What's ahead for 2026? And I think a couple of things I've seen is like, okay, yeah, there was a lot of talk about AI bubble and stuff. I think 2026 is the year to kind of prove like that AI can provide some value. Like
Mm.
not just say it. Let's see how it's providing value. And I think that's something going back to our state of AI. That's what we want to see as well. We want to see, okay, the gambling industry has started to said they're using AI. But okay, but where are they using it? How are they using it? Where do
Mhm.
they think they're getting ROI? Is it more of a cost saving things, or is it actually a revenue generating product? Like that kind of thing. So
It's gonna
I
take
think
some really smart and really creative people to use this amazing tool, but, it's like petroleum. Think about all that it powers, and, at one time, it was just a liquid and useless, so I
yeah.
think it's up to us to create the machines that can use the AI effectively because it's already super intelligence or no super intelligence, it's already quite a powerful thing, in my
Well, what do
100%.
you consider super intelligent? Like, I just wanna like, how do you see super intelligent? What is that?
So it's another good question. I guess the most basic definition would be superior intelligence to humans. But
Yeah.
then what is that? Because, language models are already way better at like any question you ask them. So now
Yeah.
it becomes a question of what is intelligence rather than what is super intelligence. So yeah, I don't know. I could go down a big
and
rabbit
I think
hole with
it's to
this.
cause
I
people
know,
to
me too.
even ask questions, "Are we smarter than a dolphin? Are we smarter than" I mean, they do things that we can't do,
Yeah.
and so is
Yeah.
it maybe just, we built the civilization, but does that make us the smartest necessarily? I mean, we're getting all philosophical.
There we go.
No, it's
Yeah.
good. It's good. Yeah, no, I think I guess to just put a pin in that one, but like, yeah, we could say like, yeah, should we even be comparing to humans? Maybe like,
Mm.
Yes.
is it just a different thing? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is. This is what do we say? Coming in a rabbit hole, jumping down. It's so big. Well, now I'm to try to finish this, I guess. So what do you see? What do you see in the next 10 years? How do you see where we're going to be in all of this?
From the gambling industry's perspective and AI, I'd like to see. I think I'll try and sum it up in a couple of points. One area we spoke about with responsible gambling,
Mm-hmm.
and safer gambling, whatever you want to call it. I think we have maybe hit a period of stagnation with how technology is being used to support responsible gambling and safer gambling. I'd hope that in the next 5 years, we're going to see how AI can really get us to the safer gambling, responsible gambling 2.0.
Okay.
Maybe we did 1.0, then we went to 2.0 with the internet. Maybe AI, there's going to be some kind of 3.0. We're going to see some new things. I don't have necessarily the ideas, but I think a lot of people have cool ideas, and AI will allow them to do that. And I think that's another. From an academic perspective, I'd love to see the gambling research community leverage AI for research. So this is something
Mm.
we're doing now. Like we have an in-house server, we have a language model on our server that we actually use to help us with research. For example, like the other day, we had 17,000 papers we had to screen, and we wanted to
Wow.
say whether it was AI or not. To get a human to do that would take, I don't know, like two years or
Yeah.
something. The
Yeah.
language
Yeah.
model did it in 2 days. So,
Yeah.
it's stuff like this where I think like, AI could actually help and like produce research faster. So that was kind
Mm.
of two things. And then this is a more broad perspective, but I think the gambling industry has a really good opportunity to present itself as and demonstrate how an entertainment industry can do AI right. Like
Mm.
this is an industry that's been heavily regulated because it delivers a potentially harmful product. We're now seeing, you know, this controversial industry intersect with a controversial technology.
Mm.
I think it creates a really good opportunity for the gambling industry to be like, hey, we're a controversial sector. This is a controversial technology. This is how you adopt it in the right way. And I think it could be a real chance for the gambling sector to show itself as, the leader in how to do AI right.
Mm.
So that's what I'd hope to see in the next 5 years as well.
That's a
Mm.
great answer.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think so too. Yeah, I hope.
Thanks.
All right. Well,
Well,
thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
thank
It was
you.
a real pleasure. If I could just mention our conference that we
Oh, go
organize
ahead. Go
once every
ahead.
3 years, I wouldn't
Please.
mind. Yeah. So at the International Gaming Institute, we one of our flagship programs is our international conference on gambling and risk taking. It only happens every 3 years. This year it happens in Vegas every time, but this year
Yeah.
it's going to be at the Bellagio, Las Vegas. Um, I think it's a great, it's a research conference where we have a good mix of academics, regulators, treatment providers, lawyers. And it's very much a gambling conference, but we call it the gambling and risk taking conference because we want to encompass
Mm.
anything that kind of involves this risk taking, domain.
Yeah.
So I know you probably have a diverse set of listeners. So if anyone wants to come along and attend, or if someone wants to submit a paper to present, we'd certainly welcome it. It's the
Oh, that's great.
International Conference on Gambling and Risk Taking. So yeah.
And where can you find it? Online somewhere if you
Yes, a good point
wanna.
as well. Our website is unlv.edu/IGI. So you can go there, and there should be a link to the conference on that page. Also, my LinkedIn. If you LinkedIn my name, I think I might be the only Kasra Ghaharian. I don't. So yeah, if you LinkedIn my name, happy to connect and share more on the conference as well.
Oh, wonderful. And
Wonderful.
last question I wanna ask, when is it?
Oh, good.
Yes.
I should have said that. It's May
Mm.
26th to the 28th of this year, 2026. So yeah,
Oh,
end of
wonderful.
May. Yeah,
Wonderful.
I think
you
we
guys
all
should come
should
as well.
go.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'd
I
Yeah,
love
was just
to.
saying that we
Yeah.
should.
Definitely.
Well,
Definitely.
thank you for mentioning that. And as I said, I think we all should go. This is very, very interesting. And
Definitely.
thank you for taking your time to talk to us. Really, really appreciate that.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching or listening to The Internet is Crack. Tune in next week when we have another great conversation about robotics, AI, and the internet. You can watch us or listen to us on YouTube or Spotify or many other outlets. And don't forget to follow us on social media. See you next Monday.